One of the most important things in any relationship is knowing what is expected of you. Whether it's an interpersonal relationship or a relationship with an employer or even in a relationship with a divine being. We need to know what God expects us to do and how he expects us to live. We hear that message in the 58th chapter of the book of Isaiah, a time when the people have been dealing with poverty and disease and oppression. And so God is speaking on behalf of those who have no voice. The book of Isaiah chapter 58, beginning in verse 9. If you remove the yoke from among you, the pointing of the finger, the speaking of evil, if you offer your food to the hungry and satisfy the needs of the afflicted, then your light shall rise in the darkness, and your gloom be like the noonday. The Lord will guide you continually and satisfy your needs in parched places and make your bones strong. You shall be like a watered garden, like a spring of water whose waters never fail. Your ancient ruins shall be rebuilt. You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to live in. If you refrain from trampling the Sabbath, from pursuing your own interests on my holy day, if you call the Sabbath a delight, and the holy day of the Lord honorable, if you honor it not going your own ways, serving your own interests, or pursuing your own affairs, then you shall take delight in the Lord. And I will make you ride upon the heights of the earth. I will feed you with the heritage of your ancestor Jacob, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Here ends the first lesson. Psalm 103 can be found on page 264 in the front of the hymnals. We'll read the psalm responsively. I'll take the first portion up to the asterisk, and then you'll read the second half of the verse. Page 264, Psalm 103, verses 1 through 8. Bless the Lord, O my soul,
and all that is within me. Bless his holy name.
Bless the Lord, O my soul,
and forget
not all his benefits. He forgives all your sins
and heals all your infirmities.
He redeems your life from the grave and crowns you with mercy and loving kindness. He satisfies you with good things, and your youth is renewed like an eagle's. The Lord executes righteousness and judgment for all who are oppressed. He has made ways known to Moses, and his works to the children of Israel. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy, slow to anger, and of great kindness. Isn't it great to be of slow anger and great kindness? Tommy, is your mom often slow to anger and of great kindness? Don't answer that. I'm sure she would say she was. I don't have a Bible. I printed out the second lesson for today, but left it home. Usually there's a Bible in here, but today there isn't. While we're waiting for a Bible, keep in mind that throughout our worship experience, we contrast the Old Testament or the Old Covenant, the old relationship with God, with that of the New. The old being based on the law of God as it was given to the people at Mount Sinai, a law that enabled them to live out their relationship with God, one that God established with Abraham and his descendants. Contrast that with the New Testament, where Jesus says, "A new commandment I give you, that you love one another as I have loved you." One of the marvelous things about the book of Hebrews is that it was an opportunity for Martin Luther not only to understand that our relationship with God is based on faith and not performance, but also that God's attitude towards us is not that of the grumpy parent or angry judge, but rather of a loving God who wants to restore the relationship with us. We hear that in the second lesson, where the writer to the Hebrews in this section contrasts what happened at Mount Sinai, where the people were afraid to approach God. In fact, they were told to not even touch the mountain, with the New Testament, where Jesus physically makes contact with the people in his day who were hurting and in need of a loving word. From the letter to the Hebrews, chapter 12, beginning at verse 18. You have not come to a mountain that can be touched and that is burning with fire. You have not come to darkness, gloom, and storm, to a trumpet blast, or to such a voice speaking words that those who heard it begged that no further word be spoken to them, because they could not bear what was commanded. Even if an animal touches the mountain, it must be stoned. The sight was so terrifying that Moses said, "I am trembling with fear." But you have come to Mount Zion, to the heavenly Jerusalem, the city of the living God. You have come to thousands upon thousands of angels in joyful assembly, to the church of the firstborn, whose names are written in heaven. You have come to God, the judge of all men, to the spirits of righteous men made perfect, to Jesus, the mediator of a new covenant, and to the sprinkled blood that speaks a better word than the blood of Abel. See to it that you do not refuse him who speaks. If they did not escape when they refused him who warned them on earth, how much less will we if we turn away from him who warns us from heaven? At that time his voice shook the earth, but now he has promised, "Once more will I shake not only the earth but also the heavens." The words "once more" indicate the removing of what can be shaken, that is, created things, so that what cannot be shaken may remain. Therefore, since we are receiving a kingdom that cannot be shaken, let us be thankful, and so worship God acceptably with reverence and awe, for our God is a consuming fire. The Gospel of the Lord. Fly away. I set it free. How many times have you felt like there was some kind of a heavy weight pressing down on your shoulders? Maybe not physically, but emotionally, or psychologically, or spiritually. In researching today's gospel lesson, we have a story about a hunchback woman, a story that appears only in Luke's gospel. And it is theorized that there are any number of possible meanings to this woman's burden. It could have been a psychological condition. It could have been something physical. It could also be an allegorical reference to the Israelites who were hunched over and oppressed by the Romans. I tend to think it is exactly what it says: a woman who was stricken with a physical disease and who had been that way for 18 years. And yet in that time, she continued to come to the temple, to the synagogue, week after week. And on this particular week, Jesus was sitting in the synagogue, teaching. He sees this woman, realizes that she is a child of Abraham, calls her over and heals her. What would you anticipate the reaction of the church to be? Joy, triumph, celebration, or indignation? Turns out indignation was the response. How dare Jesus heal on a Sabbath day? After all, healing was the work of a physician, and work was prohibited on the Sabbath. Now, before we look down our noses at these people and wonder how they could act that way, we have to take a look at our own environment and wonder how many times we have ignored the pain in someone's life because it didn't fit our structure or our constitution or our accepted way of conducting church business. We hear Jesus' response to them and to us when he calls the leader of the synagogue a hypocrite, who was more than willing to lead his donkey out to get water on a Sabbath day, but was upset when a woman was healed. We rise to the good news of the gospel. This is the gospel according to Luke, the 13th chapter, beginning at the 10th verse. Glory to you, O Lord. Now Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues on the Sabbath. And just then there appeared a woman with a spirit that had been crippled for 18 years. She was bent over and quite unable to stand up straight. When Jesus saw her, he called her over and said, "Woman, you are now set free from your ailment." When he laid his hands on her, immediately she stood up straight and began praising God. But the leader of the synagogue, indignant because Jesus had cured on the Sabbath, kept saying to the crowd, "There are 6 days on which work ought to be done. Come on those days and be cured, and not on the Sabbath day." But the Lord answered him and said, "You hypocrites! Does not each of you on the Sabbath untie his ox or his donkey from the manger and lead it away to give it water? And ought not this woman, a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan bound for 18 long years, be set free from this bondage on the Sabbath day?" But he said this. All his opponents were put to shame, and the entire crowd was rejoicing at all the wonderful things he was doing. The Gospel of the Lord.